All right, let's talk about the picks. We haven't talked much about the picks here, man. And I'm really excited about this new draft class for the Golden State Warriors. And who better to talk about draft prospects and drafted players than Jay Bilas, ESPN college basketball analyst, has been in our living rooms for many, many years. At Jay Bilas on Twitter. I love the way he starts his morning quoting Jeezy all the time. Like, Jay Bilas got some Jeezy in his bag? That's pretty cool there. But let's talk to Jay Bilas. He joins us here on the Morning Rush on 95.7 The Game. Joe Shasky, the Butcher, Bonte Hill. Jay, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. Maybe at the end you could leave out with the Jeezy lyric of the day. But before we do that, let's learn about these players. And I'm really excited about Trayce Jackson-Davis, but let's start with the first-round pick, 19 overall, Brandon Poeltl out of Santa Clara, just right down the road. Yet a lot of people in the Bay Area don't know much about this kid. We showed his highlights last week when he did get drafted. Tell us a little bit about this kid and how his game can translate into the NBA.
Well, he started out at Illinois and then transferred to play for Herb Sundek at Santa Clara, and he is a really good shooter. He can shoot it from the perimeter, off the dribble, off the catch, can create some offense for himself. So really good guard on the offensive end. I mean, there's some question marks defensively about Poeltl, but he has a really high basketball view. He gets how to play. And he can play make for others. So I think he fits into the Warriors' culture and their system. He'll have to, like most rookies, have to figure out the defensive piece. He's not a natural sort of elite defender, but he can hold his own, and I think he'll be fine on that end. And I like him a lot. Lefty, he gets it, and he's one of those guys that, by knowing how to play, fits in very well with what the Warriors like to do, because they're not much of a ball screen oriented team. They get a ton of movement, and so you have to be able to think your way through the game and feel your way through, and he's really got that sort of basketball IQ.
Normally when we see these highlights, the ball is in people's hands. Can he play without the ball?
He can, but at Santa Clara he had to have it in his hands, and so I don't think that's necessarily a negative. He's a smart player, so he's not going to come in there expecting to say, hey, Steph, move aside, let me take over. He's not that type of player. But in situations, he'll come in and be a rotational player, and I think he can really add value. It's similar to they're different players, but similar to what Christian Brown did last year for Denver.
In terms of value at that slot, and you understand this entire draft board inside and out, and it's tough. You don't know every single team's needs in the NBA, but do you think they got good value at this spot in the draft for this player?
Yeah, at 18 to get him, I think that was really good. I mean, there were certainly some other choices there, and I'm not sure the Warriors expected Cam Whitmore to be there, and Cam Whitmore is the superior talent. He's an elite NBA athlete right now, but I think as far as talent and fit goes, Poeltl, and it sounds like they targeted him, that was what they wanted. So when you had somebody else available like Whitmore that you didn't expect, it might give you a little bit of thought. But it sounds like Mike Dunleavy Jr. and the whole front office targeted Poeltl.
Jay Bilas here on the Morning Rush on 95.7 The Game, ESPN college basketball analyst. Now tell us about Trayce Jackson-Davis, because, I'm not going to lie here. We watch a lot of Warriors basketball. Not a lot of college basketball in our lives these days until March Madness. And I think March Madness has been really, really fun the last few years here. It has some crazy buzzer beaters. But Trayce Jackson-Davis, when I saw his highlights for the first time and started doing deep dive on him, I started to think, how the heck did this kid drop to 57? I mean, this guy looks like a stud. Became the only NCAA Division I player in the last 25 seasons to average 20, 10, 4 assists, 2 blocks in the season. And he looks like a guy the Warriors need, somebody who could get easy buckets around the rim. That's been a struggle for them the past few years. Why did Trayce Jackson-Davis fall all the way to 57, Jay?
Well, first of all, if you're not watching college basketball, you're the poorer for it. I mean, it's the superior commentated game, I can tell you that. And
we check out you in his shoe, man.
Yeah, to listen to that day by day is just, I can't imagine the joy that college basketball fans experience that you're missing. I was surprised, too, that Trayce Jackson-Davis, I think I said a little bit earlier in the draft when we had some time in between picks, that were I that team drafting, I don't remember who it was, but I said, I'd take Trayce Jackson-Davis. He was the best player on the board at that time. And I think he's a first-round player. He's an NBA player, and I think he's a first-round talent that is lacking one, elite NBA skill that the NBA seems to value over everything else now, and that's perimeter shooting. He's not a perimeter shooter, but he's another lefty, just a ridiculous athlete, incredibly powerful. His hands are big. He catches everything, can operate in the post. He operates really well out of pick and roll, and he's a powerful roller. Can catch a short roll, and he's got great footwork. And he can block shots, and he's a high-volume rebounder at both ends of the floor and an excellent offensive rebounder. Gets off the floor with a second jump with height and power. I think he's got first round written all over him. So to get him at 57 and there were only 58 picks in this year's draft because a couple teams were had to forfeit picks. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, we would have been there past 1 a.m. this year.
Yeah.
But he's legit, and I was surprised he was on the board that long. So I think that Golden State has to be very pleased that they were able to get a player of that caliber that late in the second round.
Yeah, you mentioned the perimeter scoring, which of course the NBA values it. We see threes all over the place, but for this Warriors team, when you have a guy like Steph, you got somebody shooting they have around him like Klay Thompson. It feels like Trayce Jackson-Davis. We don't need you to shoot. He may be a better fit than what James Wiseman was when they drafted him number 2 overall a few seasons ago. It seems like a perfect fit in this system, as where if he went to another team, maybe, okay, the perimeter offense is a problem here, but for this team, it feels like it's a great fit.
I think Trayce Jackson-Davis would fit with any team because he does so many things at a high level. He's just missing that one thing. He's not going to be. He's not proven to be a stretch 4 in his college career, and I don't think he's going to be one. But he's got so many other attributes that are NBA level that, to me, I don't want to say it doesn't matter. It would be nice if he had that, but it's not that big of a deal. And your point, I think, is correct. Like, with one guy out there that's not a perimeter threat, you don't want to put 3 of them out there.
Right.
But with one guy, that's not that big of a deal, especially the way the Warriors play. And he's so big, strong, and just a superior athlete that he does so many other things so well that I think he'll do really well in the NBA. I had him ranked way higher than that.
Wow.
But that shooting piece, that's one of the reasons that so many elite college big guys, whether it's Oscar Tshiebwe or Adama Sanogo or Drew Timme, guys like that. Drew Timme's athleticism is going to hold him back on the NBA level. But other than that, you just don't see those guys valued the same way they were valued, 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah, and then you get someone like Kevon Looney on the Warriors, and he provides tremendous value, and he doesn't really shoot or jump at all, so it's interesting. Jay, just in general, like, you do this for a living, so you're this situation's good for this guy, and that situation's good for that guy. I am frustrated as a Warrior fan because they had so many young players, and it's like, oh, this is a great environment to learn from some great veterans, and yet so many guys needed so much playing time, yet they couldn't afford them the opportunities to play because they were trying to win now. What do you make of this whole situation with the Warriors and how they've developed some of these young guys, whether it's Wiseman, Moody, Kuminga, Jordan Poole? Because I think a lot of Warrior fans are just frustrated in general with these young guys.
Well, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, the Warriors have done as good a job as any team in the NBA of building through the draft. And the draft, you're going to have some big hits, which they've had with Klay Thompson and Draymond Green and Steph Curry. And you're going to have a couple of misses. That's going to happen from time to time, or players that don't do as well as you expect. And sometimes you have to make choices. Wiseman didn't work out like we expected. I thought he was a good pick at number 2 a few years ago, but it hasn't worked out the way they wanted. And it's not like Jordan Poole wasn't a really good player for Golden State. And look where they got him. It's not like they drafted him number 2. So he provided great value to Golden State, and they used him in a trade and all that. So it just depends on how you look at it.
Yeah.
You're bringing in guys younger than ever now, and a lot of them are coming in at age 18, 19. So I'm not sure how much you can expect early, and then you have to make a decision on them when their rookie contract is up. So there's a lot of variables, and when you have so many super talented veterans, you have to fit players around those guys. And so at the same time, you're looking for help now. You're looking for upside picks and things like that. It's a difficult process. Plus, the Warriors are paying so much in luxury tax. Getting younger players, they have to fill out a roster,
Exactly.
and having younger players on the roster is economically sound.
Knowing what you know now, if Kuminga was in this draft, because he's still only 20 years old, where would he have slotted in a draft like this one?
Top 10 for sure. I don't know. I haven't really thought about that. I don't know whether he'd go 6, 7, whatever, but he's super talented. And so he would have been heavily valued. If you're taking him now, knowing, he's a couple years in, but those guys, those teams are drafting off of limited information and going off of their upside potential when they're teenagers. And so that makes it a little bit more difficult. That's why the Thompsons got drafted, 4 and 5 and, things like that. I mean, you had a number of players that hadn't proven it yet, but they're so capable that you're essentially betting on their upside potential.
Jay, what was the knock on Kuminga coming into the draft? Because I remember at times he was slotted to be a top 5 pick. Then he goes 7 to the Warriors. And a lot of people thought, oh, man, this guy could be good. But what were the knocks on him? And what have you seen through the first 2 years of his career?
I think he's done well. He's shown some flashes of how good he is now and how good he's going to be. I think just the idea that he hadn't put it together yet, that they didn't know exactly what he was going to be, but he had the elite athleticism, rebounding, run the floor, a good touch on his shot, and it's just a question: does he know how to play yet? And I use the word yet because I think he will. And one of these things, like sometimes I heard with one player this year, it was Scoot Henderson. Some saying, well, he didn't play as hard as they expected in his second year in the G League. And I was like, yeah, but he's a competitor. And some of this is maturity. I mean, if you look back at some college players in years past, and I use J.J. Redick as an example, J.J. Redick had a 15-year NBA career, and he became a master craftsman in the league. But his first 2 years at Duke, they would have said, well, he's not in great condition. He doesn't take it as seriously as he should and all this other stuff. What somebody is at age 19 isn't necessarily what they're going to be at age 23 or 25. And these guys mature. So for Henderson, I chalk that, minor criticism up to maturity. And I think once he's in the league, and is in that environment, I think he's going to get better and better.
Well,
you don't know, but with those things, we believe certain things, but nobody really knows.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I'm with you there, and we hear a lot of that out here in the Bay Area when it comes to Kuminga and Moses Moody. Oh man, these guys are young and immature. Well, they're 20 years old. What do you expect? With a millions of dollars
second
here.
language.
God forbid what I was doing at 20 years old. Speaking of maturity, though, it feels like this kid going to San Antonio, Victor Wembanyama, is super mature. I'm very impressed with him. But I do look at that frame saying, how is he going to hold up in the NBA? How is he going to bang on the block with some of these bigs and these stronger athletes here? Give us your take on Victor Wembanyama and how he will fare in the NBA.
He'll do great as long as he stays healthy. It's more of a spread floor game now than it was years ago. Like he's not being drafted into the league to bang bodies with Artis Gilmore and Nate Thurman. Post the way the game's played anymore. So that's of zero concern to me. I think he's going to get stronger and his body will mature. I don't know that he necessarily needs to carry more weight. But I would say this, that in 2007 or so, whenever I think it was 2007 when Kevin Durant came into the league, we were all losing our minds that he couldn't bench press 185 a single time at the combine, and he's thin, and how's he going to hold up against the bang in the NBA? And I think we all know the answer to that. It's not that kind of league anymore, and so I'm not. He's not a low post center. He's a basketball player. He's going to be playing all over the floor. And with what he's capable of doing, he's smart enough to keep his body off of bigger players that could bully him. And he can pull those guys away from the basket. He's got skills that you just don't see in big guys. So, I don't feel like, look, he's still got to prove it, but I don't feel like anybody's making this stuff up on Victor Wembanyama. Like, he's legit. And as long as he stays healthy, he's going to be an impact player in the league for a long time.
Yeah, he looks the part, man. I'm super impressed with his intellect, his maturity, man. I'm really excited. Hopefully he plays in the California Classic next week up in Sacramento. Jay, I know you're a busy man, but we do thank you for the time. We are huge fans of yours, man, and great work on college basketball. You do make the game, and you really pump it up, and we enjoy your broadcast, especially on primetime Saturday nights.
Really appreciate it, guys. Thank you for having me.
Good
Anytime.
stuff.
Jay Bilas here on the Morning Roast on 95.7 The Game, ESPN college basketball analyst. I forgot to get the Jeezy lyric. Damn it. I want to get a Jeezy lyric from him. That's one of the coolest parts about him. He quotes Jeezy every single morning.